Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. We're now a few days into Hearthstone's Titans expansion, and while there's still going to be plenty of meta developments, it is now possible to start evaluating the cards and think about, okay, what sort of cards should you be crafting, what sort of cards should you not be crafting. And in this video, I'm going to take a look at the Titans legendary cards, the best Titans legendary cards to craft. So, first of all, these two cards. These two cards are cards that I can unconditionally recommend crafting, because Mimir the Mastermind and Sif, they are cards that enable completely new archetypes. They enable completely new archetypes that are looking very strong right now. Even if the meta changes a little bit, those archetypes are not going to be completely invalidated. They are going to be here for this expansion. Maybe as tier 1, maybe a little lower tier, but they are going to be present and you cannot play them without these cards. Mimir the Mastermind is a key card in Mech Rogue, and Sif, that spell damage, is key card in what is now called Rainbow Mage. Sif Mage, it's sort of a burn mage, whatever you like to call it. But these two, in that sense, are the best legendary cards here to craft, because they open up brand new archetypes for you to play. Then, in the next category, we have Agramar the Avenger and Amidus the Peacekeeper. Agramar and Amidus do not open new archetypes for you to play, but what's strong about Agramar and Amidus is that you can put Agramar into every Hunter deck, and you can put Amidus into every Paladin deck, and they are going to be very, very strong in all of those decks. So if you like to play with Hunter, if you like to play with Paladin, you want to craft these cards because they are just going to go in every single deck that you play, and they're always going to be good. So there's really no reason not to craft these. Also, Hunter and Paladin are both going to have decks that will be meta decks during this expansion, so at least one of the decks where these are played is going to be a meta deck. Then there is a third category, and in this third category I have cards that enable new archetypes, but I'm not sure if these archetypes will stay in the meta. First of all, we have Warlock, we have Loken, Jailer of Yogg-Saron, and we have Sargeras the Destroyer. They're used in Thaddeus Warlock, they can be played in Control Warlock. Are those going to stay playable? We are already seeing Control Warlock's performance go down. We are seeing Thaddeus Warlock's performance also starting to go down. So how viable are they going to be? If you want to play these Warlock archetypes, yes, you need these cards. But even if you have these cards, are you going to have a deck that can climb? That I wouldn't count on. Likewise, Helia, a key card in Plague Death Knight. Plague Death Knight needs Helia because Helia is really the core of what Plague Death Knight is all about. But Plague Death Knight performance also is a little bit mediocre. So it looks like Plague Death Knight is going to survive in some form. I'm more confident that Plague Death Knight is going to be part of the meta than I am that Control Warlock is going to be part of the meta. But still, it's not going to be a top tier deck. And therefore, crafting Helia, well, if you want to play with those plagues, yes. But if you just want to climb the ladder, maybe no. Then we have Golganet, the Thunderer. And Golganet is looking really, really strong in Nature Shaman. Is Nature Shaman going to be a playable archetype? Unlike Plague Death Knight and unlike Control Warlock, Nature Shaman is actually on a bit of a rise. So Nature Shaman started out below 50%, but it's starting to peak a little bit above it. Maybe there is something to Nature Shaman, and if you want to play Nature Shaman, you want to have Golganet. I guess technically you can play Nature Shaman without Golganet, unlike Plague Death Knight without Helia, but Golganet is by far the best performing card in the list, and it allows you to draw those cards, it allows you to have such sweet turns. I mean, it's just, it feels really gimped if you play it without Golganet. So these cards, specific decks, they define those decks, but whether they're going to stay in the meta is uncertain, so a reserved recommendation to craft these. Then in the fourth category, I have cards that are strong. These cards are very good in their respective decks. They don't define those decks, and they don't go into all archetypes of those classes. Like Primus, you don't necessarily play Primus in very fast Death Knight decks, but Primus is really good in like Plague Death Knight, also in Blood Death Knight. You can play Blood Death Knight without having Primus, you can play Plague Death Knight without having Primus, but Primus is still really good. Amantul. Amantul goes into Control Priest. Amantul has also been used in Undead Priest, these more aggressive Priest decks. It's a little bit of an awkward fit. It's such a great card that it can work even in those ones, but it's like, maybe you can just replace it with something else. If you want to play Control Priest, you could do without Amantul, but Amantul is very, very good. And likewise, August Emerald Star goes into Relic Demon Hunter at the moment, performing extremely well in that deck. Obviously you could play Relic Demon Hunter without August, but you would kind of want to have it there. Then again, there are also more aggressive Demon Hunter decks that don't use August. So these cards, great cards. If you like to play the types of decks that these go into, yeah, you should craft them. But even if you play these classes, you might not play the exact decks where these are used. And finally, as a fifth category, I have nice to haves. We have Voltron Prime for Mech Rogue. Mech Rogue is a great deck. Mech Rogue really... Mimiron is an essential card, and then I guess Ini, an older legendary card, is an essential card for Mech Rogue. Voltron Prime is not. Voltron Prime is a perfectly fine card in Mech Rogue. You can play with it in Mech Rogue. Mech Rogue is even slightly improved by having Voltron Prime, but it's by no means essential. Likewise Norgannon. You can play Norgannon in Sith Mage. Norgannon is a fine card there, but you can also build a Sith Mage without Norgannon and still do fine. Jotun, the Eternal. You can put this in Relic Demon Hunter. Goes really nicely in Relic Demon Hunter, but again, like, you could also play without it. It's not totally essential. So some nice to have cards, but quite low priority crafts because they don't define the archetypes, and the archetypes can be played without these cards. And then there's all the other legendary cards from the expansion, which I currently don't really recommend crafting. I guess the most interesting one of those would be Odin. I mean, Odin Prime Designate, supposedly new card that's going to help Control Warrior become a thing, but Odin has proven to be very, very difficult to get on the board. So yeah, Odin defines the new Control Warrior archetype, but the new Control Warrior archetype so far has looked very weak. So it's really hard to recommend crafting a card for a really weak deck. Obviously, if you craft based on, hey, I just really want to play this specific kind of deck without consideration, okay, is it like meta viable, then absolutely Odin can be something that you would love crafting. But then you don't really need any crafting advice now, do you? Because if you already know that, hey, this is the type of deck I really want to play no matter its performance, then you just want to craft the cards for that deck and that's it. You don't need anyone to tell you anything. But this is like considering the performance of the cards, the performance of the archetypes, and the importance of the cards in those archetypes, and that gives roughly this kind of priority for crafting Titans legendary cards. To recap, essential cards without which top tier archetypes don't work, Mimiron and Sith. Then cards that are super strong in all of the decks for their classes and will be included in some top tier archetypes, Agramar and Amithos. Then cards that define their archetypes, but the archetypes might not be great in the end. Loken, Sargeras, Helia and Golganeth. Then really strong cards for specific archetypes within a class, Primus, Amantul and Argus. And nice to have cards which should be playable throughout the expansion but are not essential in order to just play the decks, Voltron, Norgannon and Jotun. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.